The finals just got a brand new update 2.5.1. We also saw a big store update this one and some cool things coming. Additionally, we have some new voice lines that are making the rounds. We also got some more community discussion around certain changes, and even some old alpha footage that might be relevant to today. We got a ton to talk about. What's up world, it's Utopia back in with another video, and today we're checking out all things the finals. Okay, so jumping right into it, we'll get into the patch notes, we'll get into the opening statements. Now of course, as always, we do have that opening statement on Discord. However, we do have an additional opening statement that happened yesterday. Now they went over to say that they weren't releasing a regular update this week, but it was a smaller patch. They're getting a much larger patch in the next week or two. Obviously, we're still seeing the regular store updates, along with some ongoing adjustments to the anti-cheat and security. Here's something pretty big though. They went on to say here that something very cool is in the works. In addition to bug fixes and the balance tweaks we mentioned last week, we'll roll out those various changes to make Ranked a better experience for all. Obviously, they wanted to set expectations for this week. Now, we do have that opening statement for 2.5.1. That first statement there was done by Embark Dusty. However, for the patch notes, we do have Embark Oscar coming back, saying, as we mentioned yesterday, we're not releasing a regular update this week. Instead, we are going full steam ahead towards a larger content patch in the next week or two. What you'll find this week is further behind the scene improvements to our security, as well as a new store, which includes a certain sort of after kitchen utensil. Which, yeah, we finally did get that comically large spoon that was being teased. Now, as for the opening statements on the patch notes, they are very small and limited here. I wanted to say that it's just a store update. They have no update, just a small patch with the live new store content and provide a fix for the server crashes that have been happening lately. If you haven't seen, the servers even crashed yesterday and the day before, I believe, as well as maybe even a couple of days prior to that. So yeah, hopefully that does stabilize the servers there because they have been crashing on and off. Obviously, we have that new 2.5.1 update video where they go over all the new store items. They went on here to say that we added improvements and adjustments to the security and anti-cheat, and that's basically it for the patch notes. So obviously that was a very brief patch. Everything they went over in the opening statement was included with the patch notes, essentially. Now again, for the store update, we do have that Broth Bruiser, which is that spoon, again, that will apply for the Sledgehammer on the heavy class, obviously. And following that is the Techno Honeycomb set, which does include some new various weapon skins, which look pretty cool. We also have an individual item here, the Smokeout Mask. And last but not least, we do have the Memory Refresh set, which has a really cool item here, the Key Command, which actually does work with your keyboard. If you press the Z and Control key, they will actually work. That's just a really cool detail there, so you can have that actually apply. Again, an actual decent store update, as we did get a lot of items there. Of course, people still want that Goth Girl skin. I know people have been waiting on that for weeks. I'm guessing that's going to come in the next week or two, as with a bigger, larger patch. And similarly with that higher content push, we'll probably see that skin as well. Again, when that does come out, of course, I will cover that. Now, there is some new voice lines that have been happening within the finals. As someone pointed out here, Scotty and June have been going over some new voice lines. One of them being a contestant's elimination streak has heated up and shows no signs of slowing down. Just shows how fast they can incorporate some new voice lines and some new tricks there. Another commenter here pointed out that there's a bunch here for when a team wipes, which is a contestant from a powerhouse is unstable and they just wiped a team. Which again, of course, that will incorporate whatever team name. And then another one here saying a contestant from X eliminated multiple opponents. And then another one from the Banquet mode where there is a contestant from X jingling with all the coins in their pockets. There's a few more here that people have pointed out. I'll link down to the thread so you can go through all of them and see kind of some of the new voice lines if you haven't heard them already. Again, it's really cool to see some of the tech they're using here, as well as how fast they can incorporate these voice lines. I definitely think it adds another layer and dynamic to the finals. I do quickly want to go over this thread as it pointed out some of the alpha footage. I have covered this before. This was pointed out right before release, I believe, although some people might be new with Season 1. Now we have this thread here that says, how do you feel about the scooters and cars coming to the finals? I think they add some excitement to the game. And yes, if you haven't seen from the actual alpha footage of the finals, there was cars and motorcycles. These were shown off very, very briefly in this footage here. However, it definitely adds some interesting stuff there, as they're possibly working on vehicles or maybe still going to incorporate them. Although this might be completely scrapped or just used for new maps, maybe even possibly with Season 2. Again, as some comments pointed out, maps really aren't big enough for these. Although I think overall it could add some dynamic to the maps, or it could add a little bit of fun. Seems like you might not be able to get around much, especially on some of the older maps. We had some comments here that people wanted them to add it to Ranked and just shake things up. Again, not entirely sure. We'll have to wait and see how they incorporate this stuff or what they do add or don't add. Would be kind of cool to see something new, so we'll have to wait and see. I had another big thread that's kind of blowing up on the final subreddit right now, where this person went over that the finals is basically losing player numbers. Videos are a big problem. We have a lot of discussion on the finals Discord about player count numbers, on the Reddit, as well as YouTube. It's kind of all over the place right now. People are really discussing that. I've had a lot of comments about this as well. We did, of course, have that big spike up with Season 1. Some people were hoping for it to be a little bit more than it currently was. However, I think this game just needs time in the oven overall. Seems like it's actually really hard to build a player base right now. If you look over at XDefiant, it looks like that game's also going to struggle with that as well, at least in my opinion. People are basically sitting on old games and not really moving to new ones. Games like Apex Legends and Destiny, which have been kind of burnt as of late. People still sit on things like CSGO and League of Legends as well. So unfortunately, right now we're in a period of gaming point where people are just sitting on old games because the old games were made better than the new ones. That doesn't account for the finals. The finals is definitely one of those games. But people and change don't really mix, so it does take time for things to kind of sway. An example of this being a recent one was the World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV Exodus. Now, it seems like things have flipped back, where people have gone back to World of Warcraft. However, if you are an MMO player like myself, there was quite the drastic change with that. And really the only reason, in my opinion at least, that WoW came back was because of how much content they released with World of Warcraft Classic. Again, I know this is an entirely different discussion than the finals, however, this I think will apply in the future, as gaming isn't really growing, especially since 2020 era, so players will need to move from one segmented section like Apex or Destiny over to other games. I think we might eventually see an exodus like that. We're already seeing it away from Call of Duty. Time will tell with everything. Of course, I obviously have a bit of a bias there, and I hope the finals does well. I think this game is very mechanically smooth, and when I do play FPS, it is my FPS of choice. Again, we'll have to wait and see on everything there. They are starting to do larger content patches, so we'll see if that does pay off in the long run. For the community section here, we did have someone here reverse engineer the ORF logo from the sweatshirt. This seems really accurate to the original. They're still a little bit warped, as he pointed out here. Overall, this looks really cool for the logo, especially getting it reverse engineered like that. This was done by M134 Rotary Cannon. Really cool look at there. I will link down below to this thread below. We also have another community suggestion here about burning tokens to change class, where again, as the title to this Reddit thread says, you could essentially just burn a token and be able to change your class in game. I think this could add some cool dynamic there. Again, we saw that with the 5v5 power shift mode where you can change your class on the go. There was a commenter here that pointed out that the inability to change your class in ranked is pretty upsetting. I do see how it could add some different meta stuff there, although I'm not sure I want this game to turn into Overwatch per se. Still a decently cool idea. I think Embark could kind of experiment with some of this stuff, especially since I've seen so many comments about people talking about the meta getting too stale, as well as just ranked being kind of stale. I do think there needs to be sort of a shift there to get players back on board with that, or at least back on board with ranked and the game overall. Not sure if this is the answer for that, but we'll have to wait and see what Embark's plan is for the future. Overall, though, a shorter patch, but it is nice to see that they are still putting stuff out weekly. But that's it about covered for today's video. If you like and subscribe, and until the next one. Deuces.